Welcome to this webinar on online solutions to workforce development. My name is Matt Bromley. I'm an academic manager here at the University of Derby Online Learning. So the first thing I thought I'd talk about was around why companies tend to invest in workforce development. And that's usually for one of two reasons. Either companies are looking to invest in their staff to improve their performance. That could be in terms of productivity. Could be in terms of management and efficiency, it could be in terms of innovation. And they're really exposing their staff to new knowledge to improve performance. On the other side, the other reason why companies tend to invest in staff development or workforce development is to reduce risk. And in those situations, you may have a new IT system, there may be changes to legislation, and at that point, you're looking to upskill and train your staff to reduce potential organizational risk. So within the context of this presentation, those are the two areas that we might be thinking about. So looking at the sector in terms of the broader kind of digital online learning space, this has been developing for many years now. As a university, we've been doing this for over 10 years formally, but it has many different terminologies and lots of different ways in which we discuss kind of the different terminologies. So let me just take you through some of what our thinking is in relation to this. So distance learning first, distance education was the precursor really to online learning. It was around opening up and widening access to education, and usually that involved sending learners books or CDs or DVDs with a tutor at the end of the phone to support them if that was required. E-learning then was a tool set that came with the advent of really kind of the virtual learning environment or an online space where materials could be accessed without having to kind of post that material to them. Then we've developed into online learning, and what I see online learning is that kind of socially driven, really immersive learning experience. It's really not a deficit model of higher education. So from our point of view, it's really about having everything you would have as a typical learner in the classroom. It's just that your classroom is the online space. And it would be amiss not to mention blended learning, because blended learning really, all learning is really blended these days, because the amount of information that is available on the internet, the amount of information that we curate, or the amount of time as individuals we spend in the digital space, be that in Twitter, LinkedIn, etc., learning from others in that informal space, then all that really is part of an individual's development. So that's something that we always try to harness and foster within our programs. So those are the kind of different terminologies that are out there at the moment. For me, the two really main ones are around online learning, the full immersive experience, and e-learning, which I would typically say goes more down the kind of compliance and training route, where there's a short, sharp intervention. Usually, you wouldn't have the kind of full social tools within e-learning. That's my own take on it. Just moving on to some other things that are happening within the digital learning space. Just to pick up a few of these, social learning is obviously incredibly important if you've got an organization where the staff are geographically dispersed. You obviously want people to be sharing their practice, sharing their knowledge, and that's something that we see as an incredibly positive thing for learning. Micro learning, that tends to be very short, sharp, but constant interventions that are going on. Maybe it's a 2 or 3 minute video once a day, and that can be quite positive in terms of ongoing workforce development. Massive open online courses, or MOOCs, not a relatively new advent now, but it's a really good opportunity for individuals and organizations to get some of the the most contemporary knowledge for free. And we've seen lots of good platforms out there, Coursera, FutureLearn. We offer our own institutional MOOCs as well, and we're now seeing organizations take those up as kind of the corporate MOOC, and that's free to access. Simulation is changing, I think, and becoming more mainstream, especially the more kind of technology driven simulation, like augmented reality, virtual reality, where we now have the tools and cameras to be able to develop kind of 3D spaces so that people can immerse themselves in in real environments without actually that being at a cost to the. Game-based learning is quite a contentious area. That's the use of mechanics, principles, dynamics that you would see in typical games. That could be things like the awarding of achievements or badges or points, rewards, some form of social status or constructive competition. And that's all really there to foster engagement and develop motivation in individuals. As I say, it's still quite a contentious area, but it's a really interesting area. M-learning tends to be more focused on mobile learning, and that's really about accessibility, where you might not have access to Wi-Fi. Many people, many organizations have job roles where people spend a lot of time in the field. And finally, just the nano degrees, that's the idea where people can take a degree through very small chunks of learning, progress rather than having to attend a university and do big modules. This is the idea you can build up through small interventions towards a degree. So what in terms of the benefits of online learning? I think I started to mention some of the benefits for organizations, in that this can be completely bespoke to an organization, dependent on their own objectives, their own business needs. But in terms of the learners, so the staff can learn anytime, when and where they're most ready to learn. Really, that means they can access the information and gives them full flexibility around their needs. Often they can learn more efficiently. This means that you get kind of the rapid feedback, rapid assessment, hinting, and it helps people to figure out problems in real time as well, rather than have to phone for help, etc. It allows people to learn more fully, with those some of the things that I've been mentioning in terms of teaching and learning, the use of annotation technologies, discussion forums, social learning, visualization, simulations, all of those kind of rich learning experiences. And to learn with mastery, really that's the idea of personalization, to be able to personalize your own learning journey through some materials. Really fully understanding one section before you move to the next. So for organizations and for instructors, what's the benefit? So people can spread knowledge more widely. We've seen that through the massive open online courses. We can leverage time better and build materials better. So often we see now that because there's so much material out there, it's about curating that material in a way that makes sense to your own organizational needs. And we can build that material quicker. And ultimately, some of the things that I've mentioned already are there to improve teaching and learning. All those techniques and ways in which we can look at learning. Okay, so on to the top 10 reasons why organizations might value online learning in terms of workforce development. Well, these are some of my own thoughts, but the first one is around communication and digital skills. We live in a digital world now. I think that online communication skills, the idea of netiquette, and being able to have that cultural awareness across kind of geographic boundaries is incredibly important. The second point, which I've mentioned already, is around social learning. Often, it's about having access to like-minded, engaged professionals, sharing experiences, and that can be more powerful than either materials or an instructor trying to tell someone how to do things better. The idea of peer review, peer critique is really, really important. The third one is around performance support. The idea of just-in-time learning or real-time performance support. So an online space could give an individual access to information just at that time when they need that information. It might be that they're going to undertake a development review, so they can go and read a bit more how to get the best out of development review, or it could be around coaching or mentoring. We're also seeing some quite forward-thinking things in terms of augmented reality and virtual reality to kind of simulate those real-world environments. Things like I think I saw in construction a hard hat with with an augmented reality interface where there was that support on the ground at that time when a decision is needed to be made. The fourth is reflection and personal development, and I think that is absolutely critical for me in terms of professional development and taking responsibility for that development, understanding where an individual is and where they want to be. is really important, so they can progressively foster an independence towards their own learning and development. And I think online learning really does embed opportunities for reflection, either at kind of critical points or just on an ongoing basis, and develop a portfolio, reflect on things that have happened, and that can help with the appraisal cycle as well. The next one is around project management, and I think project management is a really critical skill for any individual. Most people these days are having to undertake some form of project, usually under kind of quite aggressive time frames, and we often do that in geographically dispersed teams. So understanding some of the key tools for project management, but also understanding how to project management and being able to do that in an online space is really, really important. Number 6, authentic assessment. So this is assessment that is not, in university terms about undertaking kind of abstract theory. This is about assessment that has a direct impact in the workplace, and for organizations that's absolutely critical. So any work that's been undertaken should either be about thinking about new ideas, innovations, reflecting on current policies and practices, and seeking to really adapt and improve those practices. And that should be harnessed as part of any kind of development program. The next one is around game-based learning. I've probably already mentioned this, but using the mechanics and dynamics really to help signify and incentivize learning, improve motivation and collaboration. The next one is around analytics, and within the online environment, analytics can provide a real-time understanding of engagement for all parties, whether that's the individual, the provider, the organization, to understand how that individual is progressing in relation to their peers. Are there any kind of risks, or is there anything we need to do? And people can generally see how their progress aligns to that of their peers as well. And analytics can really support and help us to understand whether that intervention, that piece of learning is working, it's there to achieve what it set out to do. Number 9 is around return on investment. I think if online courses are designed well, we certainly, if we look at the levels of return on investment, certainly any kind of learning and development intervention should be able to achieve those first 3 levels in terms of engagement, learning, and application in the workplace. And alongside things like the infusion of project work, which I've said, business impact and ROI can eventually be established, provided that's been done up front, and when we can start to look at isolating and monetizing data. It's not necessarily what you would do every time, but certainly I think in terms of understanding application in the workplace and actual learning, then those things are things that can be done as a matter of course. And the final one is the probably most obvious one, is around that cost-effective approaches to workforce development, and that's around being able to curate materials quickly, be able to develop those materials, and being able to deploy those materials, so that we can get fairly rapid feedback on the program and then develop that for the next iteration. So that really concludes our short webinar today. Just some thoughts around organizational development and how online learning can support you. I wish you all the best in the future.